They thought breaking my chair would break me. They laughed, they whispered, they made me feel small. But what they didn't know was that my Marine husband was watching, and when he stood up, everything changed. Stay with me. This is a story you won't forget. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss powerful stories of strength, courage, and unexpected twists. My name is Claire, and if I'm being honest, my life has always been ordinary. I've never been the kind of woman who steals the spotlight when she walks into a room. I don't have that kind of bold personality that makes heads turn, nor do I wear the kind of clothes that demand attention. I've always been quieter. The listener in the group, the one who sits back, watches, and lets others fill the space with their noise. Some people mistake that for weakness. Others take it as an invitation to treat me like I don't matter. But deep down, I know who I am. I've always believed that true strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just exists. Calm, steady, waiting for the right moment to show itself. Still, I can't deny that being overlooked, being underestimated, sometimes hurts more than I let on. Most of my days look the same. I wake up early, make coffee, straighten up the house, and lose myself in the little rituals that keep me grounded. I love simple joys. The smell of freshly brewed coffee, the sound of rain tapping against the window, the pages of a well-worn book carrying me into worlds I'll never visit. Those quiet things, those small details, they matter to me. They remind me that life doesn't need to be extravagant to be meaningful. And then there's my husband, Daniel. To the world, he's a Marine, disciplined, sharp, unshakable. But to me, he's more than the uniform, more than the medals and the salutes. He's my anchor. He's the calm voice when my thoughts spiral, the steady hand when I stumble. He has this way of looking at me, like I'm stronger than I think I am, like I'm more capable than I believe. I can't count how many times his faith in me has carried me through moments when my own confidence felt like it was slipping through my fingers. Daniel and I live a simple life. We don't need flashy parties or loud circles of friends to feel complete. A walk at sunset, a dinner at home, a conversation that stretches deep into the night, that's enough for us. He jokes that after all the chaos he's seen in the world, peace with me feels like the greatest luxury. And sometimes when I catch him watching me quietly from across the room, I realize how lucky I am to love a man who doesn't just see me, but truly values me. Still, the world outside our home isn't always so kind. People have a way of judging, of labeling, of deciding who you are before you've even spoken. Maybe it's because I don't fit their version of strong. Maybe it's because I don't fight back in the way they expect. Instead of snapping, I stay silent. Instead of shouting, I walk away. It makes people think they can laugh at me, or that I'll never stand up for myself. What they don't realize is that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it hides behind the quietest person in the room, until the moment it has no choice but to come out. Looking back now, I can see how everything in my ordinary world was building up to that one day. The day I was humiliated, the day the chair beneath me was broken, the day the laughter of strangers cut through me like a blade, and the day my Marine husband reminded everyone, myself included, that respect is not a gift you beg for, it's a right you stand for. It all started with an invitation. Nothing fancy, just a casual lunch organized by a few people I knew from the community. Honestly, I wasn't even planning on going at first. I've never been the type to enjoy large gatherings where everyone tries to outshine one another. But Daniel encouraged me. He said, "Go, Claire. It'll be good for you to get out, to enjoy something different." He couldn't come along. He was caught up with military work that day, so I told myself it was just lunch, just a couple of hours. Nothing to worry about. The venue was bright and cheerful, sunlight spilling through tall windows onto tables decorated with flowers. People were dressed up, laughing a little too loud, showing off new clothes and expensive jewelry. I remember standing at the entrance for a moment, adjusting the sleeves of my simple dress, hoping I wouldn't stand out for the wrong reasons. But the truth is, I always feel out of place in these settings. Everyone else seemed to know the unspoken rules, the kind of smile that comes with practiced confidence, the way to hold a glass, the small talk that flows like honey. I, on the other hand, just wanted to sit quietly and make it through the afternoon without drawing attention. I found a seat near the middle of the room, hoping to blend in. At first it seemed fine. People chatted around me, mostly ignoring me, which was a relief. But as the food was served and conversations grew louder, I noticed a few glances my way. The kind of glances that aren't just casual, they linger, sharp, calculating. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Two women at the next table leaned toward each other, pretending to talk about something else but keeping their eyes fixed on me. One laughed, covering her mouth with her hand, but I could still hear her. "Look at her," she said. "She doesn't even belong here. Did she borrow that dress from her grandmother?" The other smirked. "She probably thinks keeping quiet makes her classy. Poor thing." My cheeks burned, but I forced myself to stay calm. I told myself not to react, not to give them the satisfaction. Still, every word felt like a pinprick against my skin. And then, it happened. As the main course was being served, I shifted slightly in my chair, and I heard it, the sharp crack of wood beneath me. For a split second, I thought it was just a creak. But before I could steady myself, the chair gave way completely, and I fell hard to the floor. The sound echoed in the room, and then came the laughter. Loud, unfiltered, merciless. It felt like every person in that room had been waiting for me to fall, and now that I had, they couldn't hold back their amusement. My dress crumpled, my hands scrambled against the floor, and my face burned hotter than ever before. Someone near the back even clapped, as if it was the best entertainment of the day. "Guess not everything's made to last," a man joked, and the room roared even louder. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. My eyes stung, but I refused to let tears fall. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I could taste blood, forcing myself not to cry in front of them. Every second felt endless, every laugh sharper than the last, and what made it worse was knowing someone had done this on purpose. As I sat there on the ground, humiliated, I noticed one of the women smirking just a little too proudly. Her eyes met mine for a brief moment, and in that instant, I knew. She had tampered with the chair before I sat down. It wasn't an accident. It was a setup. They wanted me broken, literally and figuratively. I tried to gather myself, standing up with as much dignity as I could manage, but my hands were trembling. The laughter was still ringing in my ears. My heart hammered against my ribs, every beat reminding me of my shame. I kept telling myself, "Just walk away, Claire, just walk away." But deep down, something inside me was cracking too, not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of injustice. Because while they laughed, they had no idea who my husband was, and they had no idea that this humiliation wasn't the ending of my story. It was only the beginning. I was still trying to steady myself, clutching the edge of the table when the laughter slowly began to fade. Not because people had suddenly grown a conscience, but because the room itself had gone quiet in a different way. A silence heavy enough to make even the boldest voices shrink. And then I felt it. His presence. Daniel. He had walked in just moments after I fell, his timing almost too perfect. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had told me earlier that duty would keep him busy until late that night, but there he was in his plain shirt and jacket, eyes locked on me, reading every flicker of pain on my face. I can't explain it, but the moment I saw him, I felt this rush of relief wash over me, like I didn't have to carry the weight of that humiliation alone anymore. Daniel crossed the room without saying a word. His steps were steady, deliberate, the kind that made people move out of the way without even realizing it. He reached me, bent down, and offered me his hand, not in a rushed, embarrassed way, but gently, firmly, like lifting me up was the most important thing in the world. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low, calm but edged with something dangerous. I nodded quickly, whispering, "I'm fine," though we both knew I wasn't. He helped me stand, straightened my chair, and then, finally, turned to face the room. The silence was deafening. Every set of eyes was on him, waiting to see what he'd do. Daniel's gaze swept across the tables, sharp and unflinching. He wasn't raising his voice, but his presence alone carried more weight than any shout ever could. "Who did this?" he asked, not to me, but to everyone. His words weren't loud, but they carried, measured, precise, like a command drilled into every Marine. No one answered. People shifted in their seats, avoiding his eyes. The same crowd that had been roaring with laughter just seconds before now looked like children caught with their hands in the cookie jar. One man at the far end tried to laugh it off. "Come on, it was just a joke. No harm done." Daniel's head tilted slightly, his jaw tightening. "No harm?" His voice stayed calm, but it cut through the air like a blade. "You think humiliation is harmless? You think watching someone fall because you tampered with a chair is funny?" He stepped forward, and the man who had spoken leaned back instinctively, his smirk faltering. I'd seen this side of my husband before, the soldier in him, the protector. He didn't need to throw a punch to make people tremble. His discipline, his unshakable presence, it was enough to shift the entire energy of the room. Daniel wasn't done. "I've spent years of my life in places where respect is earned, not mocked, where dignity is the only thing you hold on to. And here, in this room, you people laugh at a woman because she's quiet, because she doesn't scream for attention? That tells me more about you than it does about her." No one dared to move. Some of the women who had been whispering before now sat stiffly, their eyes darting anywhere but at him. The one who had smirked when I fell suddenly looked pale, her confidence drained. Daniel turned to me then, his expression softening. He brushed his thumb across my knuckles, silently telling me he was there, that I wasn't alone. Then, louder, for everyone to hear, he said, "This is my wife. And if you think breaking her chair will break her spirit, you've miscalculated, you've underestimated her, and you've underestimated me." The room was utterly still. For the first time that day, I felt taller, stronger, not because of the people around me, but because of the man standing beside me. I realized something in that moment. Humiliation only holds power if you let it. And with Daniel beside me, I wasn't about to let anyone write me into a story of weakness. Not anymore. I thought Daniel's words would be enough, that his presence alone would silence them and close the chapter. But the truth is, arrogance rarely bows without a fight. One of the women, the same one whose smirk had burned into me earlier, finally stood up. She crossed her arms, trying to look unbothered, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "You're overreacting," she said, her voice sharp. "It was just a little prank. People fall, people laugh. That's life." Daniel didn't flinch. He fixed her with the kind of stare I knew well, the stare that used to make even hardened Marines straighten their posture. "A prank?" he repeated slowly. "Tampering with someone's chair so they collapse in front of a room full of people is not a prank. It's cruelty, and cruelty tells the world exactly who you are." Her face flushed, but she pushed back. Well, maybe if she wasn't so plain, so quiet, people wouldn't find it funny. The words hit me harder than the fall itself. A hush rippled through the room, as if even the cruelest among them recognized she had gone too far. I felt the sting, but this time, instead of shrinking, I felt something shift inside me. Daniel turned to me then, his voice low, steady, but meant for everyone to hear. "You don't have to stay silent anymore, Claire. Say what's on your heart." For a moment, fear held me. My whole life, I had chosen silence over confrontation, believing it made me strong. But in that instant, I realized silence wasn't strength, it was surrender. And I was done surrendering. I took a deep breath, my voice shaking at first but growing stronger with every word. "You laugh at me because I'm not like you, because I don't compete for attention, because I don't measure worth by wealth or clothes, or how loudly I can speak. But let me tell you something. You don't get to define my value. You don't get to decide who I am." I looked directly at the woman who had broken the chair, and for the first time, I didn't see someone powerful. I saw someone desperate, someone so insecure she needed to tear others down just to feel tall. My dignity, I continued, isn't in your hands. It never was. You thought breaking a chair would break me. You thought laughter would erase me, but all you've done is show the world who you are and remind me of who I've always been. The room was silent. Not the uneasy silence from before, but a heavy, reflective stillness. People shifted in their seats, some ashamed, some unable to meet my eyes. A few even looked at me differently, like they were seeing me for the first time. Daniel's hand tightened around mine, his pride shining through his eyes. But more than his strength, I felt my own for the first time in a long time. The woman scoffed weakly, trying to regain ground, but no one laughed this time. No one clapped for her cruelty. She stood alone in her arrogance, exposed, stripped of the power she thought she had. And in that moment, I realized humiliation had done something unexpected. It had set me free. Because once you've been laughed at, once you've felt the sharp edge of cruelty, you learn that surviving it gives you a voice louder than any jeer. That day, I didn't just stand up from a broken chair. I stood up for myself. And there was no going back. The silence that followed my words felt heavier than anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't the silence of mockery or judgment anymore. It was the silence of shame, the kind that lingers when people know they've crossed a line too far to defend. I stood taller than I ever had before, not because the humiliation had disappeared, but because I had finally refused to carry it. My hands were steady now, my voice no longer trembling, and for the first time in that crowded room, I felt seen, not by their approval, but by my own strength. Daniel stayed close beside me, his hand resting gently at my back. He didn't need to say anything, his presence was enough. It was like a shield around me, but also a mirror, reflecting the courage I hadn't realized I still had. Slowly, the woman who had been smirking earlier, my tormentor, looked around the room and realized she was standing alone. The same people who had laughed with her moments ago now avoided her eyes. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked down at their plates as if the floor had suddenly become fascinating. No one was defending her anymore. Her cheeks burned red, and for a moment I thought she would double down, throw another insult to cover her shame. But instead, her bravado cracked. She stammered, It was just supposed to be a joke. I didn't mean—" Daniel cut her off, his voice sharp but controlled. You meant exactly what you did, and now you've learned what cruelty buys you. Nothing but regret. The woman's lips pressed tightly together, and though she never said the words, her silence was an apology in itself. She couldn't meet my eyes. She couldn't stand tall anymore. The weight of her own actions had pulled her down lower than any fall I had endured. Around the room, I saw the shift. People who had mocked me now looked at me differently, not with pity, but with a strange kind of respect. Some even seemed embarrassed for ever laughing in the first place. The man who had clapped when I hit the floor now stared at his hands, ashamed. I realized something in that moment. Regret is louder than laughter. It echoes longer. It stays when the fun is gone. And those who had thought humiliating me would be entertainment were now left sitting in their own discomfort, wishing they had chosen differently. Daniel placed his arm around my shoulders, guiding me gently toward the exit. As we walked, the crowd parted without a word. No laughter, no whispers, just silence and heavy eyes watching us leave. I didn't rush. For the first time, I didn't feel like the invisible one trying to slip away unnoticed. I walked out with my head high, every step a reminder that I was not broken. Outside, the air felt cooler, freer, as though I'd left more than just a room behind. I'd left their judgment, their mockery, their false sense of superiority, and in its place, I carried something far greater, my dignity. Later that night, as Daniel and I sat together at home, I replayed everything in my mind. The fall, the laughter, the silence, the moment my voice finally broke through. I thought I would remember that day as one of the worst of my life, but instead, it became something else entirely. It became the day I learned that humiliation can only break you if you let it. That respect isn't handed out by others. It's claimed by standing tall, even when your chair has been smashed beneath you. And most of all, it became the day I realized I wasn't just the quiet woman in the corner anymore. I was the woman who found her voice, and once you find that, there's no going back. As for the ones who laughed, their laughter faded, their regret stayed. And mine? My strength rose. They thought I would walk away in shame. Instead, I walked out stronger. Respect isn't something you beg for, it's something you claim, and once you find your voice, no one can silence it. If this story touched you, drop a comment below, share it with someone who needs courage today, and don't forget to like and subscribe. More stories are on the way, stories that remind us all that dignity can never be broken.